My daughter wrote, "Take your old stuff out of our garage. It's taking up space for our new car." I came and took everything. But she didn't know that among those things were the documents for... Good day, dear listeners. It's Clara again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. I never thought my own daughter would throw me out like yesterday's trash. For 32 years, I'd lived in my cozy two-bedroom house on Maple Street in Portland, Oregon. My late husband Tom and I had bought it back in 1991, raised our daughter Jessica there, filled it with memories. After Tom died 5 years ago, the house felt too big, too quiet. Jessica had just gotten married to Derek, and they were struggling to afford rent in the city. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't help? So I did what felt natural. I transferred the deed to Jessica's name, thinking I'd just stay there with them. We'd be one big, happy family. I kept a few boxes of my important papers in the garage: old tax returns, Tom's military records, insurance documents, things I didn't need every day but couldn't throw away. The first year was wonderful. Jessica was grateful. Derek was polite. I cooked dinners, helped with the yard work, tried not to be in the way, but slowly things changed. Derek started making comments. "We really need to update this kitchen, Mom," Jessica would say, but I could see him whispering in her ear, "This wallpaper is so dated." I'd offer to help pay, but they'd wave me off, then exchange looks I couldn't quite read. The second year, they started talking about their house, their plans. I noticed I wasn't included in those conversations anymore. When I'd walk into a room, they'd stop talking. Derek would smile, but his eyes were cold. Then came the garage incident. It was a Tuesday morning when I received the text. Not even a phone call, a text. "Mom, we need you to clear your stuff out of the garage. We're getting a new car and need the space. This weekend would be good." I stared at my phone, reading it 3 times. "No, please. No, when you have time." Just a command. I called Jessica immediately. "Honey, about the garage." "Mom, I'm busy. Just get your boxes out, okay? Derek already has the car picked out." Her voice was sharp, distracted. She hung up before I could respond. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. When had my sweet girl become this stranger? That Saturday, I drove over to what used to be my house with a heavy heart. Derek's truck was in the driveway. I could see him through the window, measuring the garage with a tape measure, already planning where his precious new vehicle would sit. Jessica met me at the door. She didn't invite me in. "Thanks for coming, Mom. The boxes are all in the corner. Derek will help you load them." She glanced at her watch. "We have brunch plans, so I needed to hurry." In my own home. In the house where I'd rocked her to sleep as a baby, where I'd nursed my dying husband, where every wall held pieces of my heart. Derek appeared, all false cheerfulness. "Hey, Margaret, let's get you loaded up." He grabbed my boxes without asking what was in them, tossing them into my car with careless thuds. I watched my life being discarded and felt something crack inside my chest. "This one's heavy," Derek grunted, dropping a box that I knew contained Tom's military medals and our old photo albums. I heard something break inside. "Careful," I snapped. He rolled his eyes. "It's just old papers, Margaret." Just old papers. My marriage certificate, my husband's death certificate, photographs of Jessica's childhood, just old papers. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Jessica and Derek stood in the doorway of my house, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling. They looked relieved. That night, as I unpacked boxes in my small rental apartment, I found the folder I'd nearly forgotten about. The original deed, the transfer documents, and clipped to them a note in my own handwriting from 3 years ago. Gift deed to Jessica, conditional on my right to remain in residence. My hands stopped shaking. My tears dried up. They didn't know what they'd just done. I sat on the floor of my cramped apartment surrounded by boxes until 3 in the morning, reading every document twice. The conditional deed was crystal clear. My lawyer, Robert Chen, had insisted on it back in 2022. "Margaret," he'd said, "I've seen too many elderly clients give away their homes and end up homeless. We're adding a clause that guarantees you lifetime residence rights." I'd resisted at first. "I trust my daughter," I'd told him. Robert had simply looked at me over his glasses. "Trust is wonderful. Legal protection is better." Now, 3 years later, his words felt prophetic. I spread out all the documents on my kitchen table: the original deed with my and Tom's names, the transfer deed with the conditional clause typed in bold, the signed acknowledgement where Jessica and Derek had agreed to the terms, witnessed and notarized. They'd thrown me out of my own house, the house I still had legal rights to. But it was worse than that. As I went through the boxes more carefully, I found other things. My mother's jewelry. Gone. I remembered seeing it in my dresser drawer before the move. The silver tea set Tom's mother had given us, missing. I'd inventoried everything when I'd packed up my room, but in the chaos and heartbreak, I hadn't noticed what had disappeared from the common areas. Had they stolen from me? Or did they consider it all theirs now? I made a list. 4 pages long, everything missing, everything discarded, everything that had simply vanished. The financial reality hit me next. I was living on Tom's military pension and Social Security, about $2,800 a month. My rent here was $1,400. Utilities, food, medicine for my blood pressure. It left almost nothing. I'd gone from living comfortably in my paid-off home to scraping by in a too-small apartment that smelled like other people's cooking. Meanwhile, Jessica and Derek were living mortgage-free in a house worth $450,000. My house. Sunday morning, I couldn't sleep. I made coffee and opened my laptop. I wasn't tech-savvy, but I knew how to search. Conditional deed violation Oregon brought up dozens of results. I read for hours, taking notes on a legal pad. The law was on my side. A conditional deed meant they'd violated a legal contract. I had grounds to either enforce my right to return or potentially void the transfer entirely. By noon, I had the skeleton of a plan. First, I needed legal advice. Not just any lawyer, someone who specialized in elder law and property rights. I found 3 names and sent emails to all of them, attaching scans of my documents. Second, I needed documentation of everything. I started a journal, writing down every interaction with Jessica and Derek. Dates, times, what was said. I went through my phone, screenshotting text messages. That cold, clear out the garage text went into a folder labeled Evidence. Third, I needed to be smart. Jessica and Derek couldn't know what I was planning. Not yet. If they got wind that I was consulting lawyers, they might try to pressure me, manipulate me, or worse, forge documents to cover their tracks. I would play the hurt, harmless old mother. I would let them think they'd won. Monday morning, my phone rang. Robert Chen's office. He'd received my email. "Margaret, I'm glad you kept those documents," his assistant said. "Mr. Chen can see you Wednesday at 2. I marked it in my calendar with a steady hand. That afternoon, Jessica called. My stomach clenched when I saw her name, but I answered with a sweet, shaky voice. "Hi, honey. Hey, Mom. I just wanted to check that you got everything moved okay." She sounded almost concerned. Almost. "Yes, dear. It's cozy here." I let my voice crack a little. "Smaller than I'm used to, but I'll manage." "That's good. Listen, Derek and I were thinking, maybe you could come for dinner next Sunday." We feel bad about how rushed everything was. They felt bad. How magnanimous. That would be lovely, I said, playing my part perfectly. I've missed you. Missed you too, Mom. See you Sunday. After she hung up, I smiled at my reflection in the darkened phone screen. Oh, they had no idea what was coming. Wednesday afternoon, I sat in Robert Chen's office on the 15th floor of the Morrison building, watching the rain streak down the windows. Robert was in his 60s now, his hair more silver than I remembered, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. He'd spread my documents across his mahogany desk and spent 20 minutes reading them in silence, occasionally making notes. Finally, he looked up. Margaret, they violated a legally binding agreement. You have several options here, and all of them are strong. My heart pounded. Tell me. First option. We send a formal letter demanding they honor the conditional deed and allow you to return to the residence immediately. If they refuse, we file for specific performance, a court order forcing them to comply. What's the second option? We void the transfer entirely. They breach the conditions, which means the deed transfer could be invalidated. The house returns to your name. He paused. This is the nuclear option, Margaret. It would mean they lose the house completely. I thought of Derek's eye roll. Just old papers. I thought of Jessica hanging up on me, barely concealing her irritation. What would you do? I asked. Robert leaned back in his chair. I'd start with option 1. Give them a chance to make it right, but I'd prepare for option 2. He pulled out a legal pad. We'll need documentation of the breach, the texts, the forced removal, witnesses if any. We'll need an inventory of what's missing from the house, and I'll need a $5,000 retainer to begin. $5,000, most of what I had in savings. Do it, I said. We spent the next hour going through everything. I showed him the text messages, the list of missing items, the timeline of how their behavior had changed. Robert's paralegal, a sharp young woman named Katie, took photographs of everything. We'll have the letter ready by Friday, Robert said as I left. They'll receive it by certified mail Monday morning. I walked out of that office feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Powerful. But I couldn't celebrate yet. I still had to sit through Sunday dinner, pretending everything was fine. Sunday arrived too quickly. I brought a homemade apple pie, Jessica's favorite since childhood, and wore my best cardigan. Play the part, I reminded myself. Derek answered the door. Margaret, come in, come in. Too enthusiastic. Fake. The house looked different. They'd repainted the living room. My soft cream walls were now a harsh gray. The family photos I'd hung for decades were gone, replaced by modern art prints. It felt like they were erasing me, one wall at a time. We've made some updates, Jessica said, watching my face. More contemporary. It's different, I managed. Over dinner, take out Chinese. Not homemade as Jessica used to cook. They made small talk. Asked about my apartment. Mentioned how nice it was to have space in the house now. The garage is perfect for the new car, Derek said. We're picking it up Tuesday. A Tesla Model Y. Fits like it was made for that space, where my memories had been stored, where Tom's medals had been carelessly tossed. I smiled and nodded, the dutiful mother. But as Jessica served the pie I'd brought, I noticed something. She kept glancing at Derek. He kept checking his phone. They were nervous about something. Mom, Jessica said carefully, you're not upset about the move, are you? I mean, you understand we needed the space. There it was. Guilt, maybe. Or perhaps they'd started wondering if they'd pushed too hard. Of course not, dear, I said, my voice soft and sad. You have your own life now. I understand. Derek relaxed visibly. Jessica squeezed my hand. You're the best, Mom. I squeezed back, thinking about the letter that would arrive at this address in less than 24 hours. That night, back in my apartment, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, waiting for Robert's text. It came at 9 a.m. Monday. Letter sent via certified mail. Delivery confirmation required. They'll have it by noon. I imagined the mail carrier ringing the doorbell, Jessica signing for the envelope, the confusion as she opened it. My phone rang at 1:47 p.m. Mom? What the hell is this? Jessica's voice was shrill, panicked. I heard Derek shouting in the background. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm and steady. It's a legal notice, honey. You violated the terms of the deed transfer. I have the right to return home. You can't be serious. You gave us this house. With conditions. Conditions you broke. My hand didn't shake anymore. Read the document you signed, Jessica. I have lifetime residence rights. Derek, she screamed. Derek, she's trying to take the house back. I heard him grab the phone. Listen, Margaret, you don't want to do this. Think about your relationship with your daughter. Is a legal fight really worth destroying your family? You destroyed it when you threw me out like garbage, I said quietly. You have 30 days to respond. My lawyer will be in touch. I hung up. The point of no return had passed. The calls started immediately. 23 calls from Jessica in the first 2 hours. 15 from Derek. I didn't answer. Robert had been clear. All communication goes through me now. Don't engage directly. Then came the texts. Mom, please, we can talk about this. You're being manipulated by that lawyer. We're your family. You're going to regret this. That last one was from Derek. The mask was slipping. By Tuesday evening, they showed up at my apartment. The buzzer rang at 7 p.m. I looked through the peephole and saw them standing there, Jessica with tears streaming down her face, Derek with his jaw clenched. I didn't open the door. Mom! Mom, I know you're in there! Jessica's voice cracked. Please, just talk to us. Mrs. Martinez, Derek called out, using my married name like we were strangers. This is ridiculous. Open the door. I called Robert instead. He answered on the first ring. They're at my door, I whispered. Don't open it. I'm calling the police for a wellness check. Stay on the line with me. Within 10 minutes, I heard new voices in the hallway. Police officers. Folks, you need to leave. The resident has asked you not to be here. That's my mother, Jessica shouted. Ma'am, your mother has legal representation, and all contact needs to go through her attorney. You need to leave now or we'll have to cite you for trespassing. I heard Derek's angry voice, more shuffling, then silence. Robert stayed on the phone with me. Are you okay? Yes, I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. I'm okay. Wednesday brought a new tactic. My phone rang from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Margaret, this is Carol Brennan, Jessica's mother-in-law. Derek's mother. I'd met her twice. A sharp-faced woman who'd looked at my modest house with barely concealed disdain. Carol, I'm calling because I'm concerned about this terrible misunderstanding. Jessica is beside herself. Derek is stressed to the point of illness. You're destroying their happiness over a simple miscommunication. It's not a miscommunication. It's a contract violation. Oh, Margaret. Her voice dripped with condescension. Is this really about the house? Or is it about feeling left out? Being elderly and alone can make people do irrational things. Have you considered that you might need help? The implication was clear. She was suggesting I was mentally incompetent. I'm 73, Carol, not senile, and I have a lawyer who confirms I'm completely within my rights. That lawyer is taking advantage of you. He just wants your money. This conversation is over. I hung up. The attacks came from all sides now. Jessica posted on Facebook about elder abuse by greedy lawyers. Mutual friends called me, confused and concerned. My own sister phoned from Arizona. Jess called me crying, "What's going on?" They were trying to isolate me, make me seem like the villain. Thursday, the formal legal response arrived at Robert's office. Derek had hired a lawyer, Marcus Stone, from a big downtown firm. Robert called me that afternoon. "They're fighting it. Stone is arguing that you voluntarily vacated the residence and that the conditional clause is unenforceable. He's also claiming you took items that belonged to Jessica and Derek." "They took my things." "I know. That's why we're filing a counterclaim for the missing property." "Margaret, this is going to get ugly before it gets better. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about Jessica's tear-stained face at my door. My baby girl. The child I'd rocked to sleep, nursed through fevers, sent to college. But then I thought about Derek's eye roll, the casual cruelty, the way they'd erased me from my own home. "I'm prepared," I said. Friday afternoon, Robert sent another letter. Formal notice of our intent to void the deed transfer entirely if they didn't comply with the conditional terms within 30 days. That evening, Derek sent one final text. "You'll die alone and miserable, old woman, and we'll still have this house." I saved the screenshot and sent it to Robert. Then I turned off my phone, made myself a cup of chamomile tea, and sat in my small living room. I needed rest. The battle was just beginning, but I'd won the first round. They'd shown their true faces, the threats, the manipulation, the cruelty. All documented now, all evidence. For 3 days, I didn't check my email or my phone. I read books, took walks, visited the farmer's market. I needed my strength for what was coming next. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, hand-delivered by a courier. I'd been back to checking my mail for only 2 days when I found the cream-colored envelope with my name written in Jessica's familiar handwriting. My heart clenched. Even now, even after everything, seeing her handwriting hurt. Inside was a cashier's check for $50,000 and a handwritten note. "Mom, we've been thinking about everything, and you're right. We were thoughtless and cruel. We don't want to fight. Please accept this as a gesture of goodwill. It's enough for a down payment on a nice condo, and we'll help you move. You deserve your own space, your own fresh start. We can all move forward from this. Love, Jessica." $50,000. I stared at the check for a long time. It would solve my immediate financial problems. I could buy a small condo, have security, stop living paycheck to paycheck. All I had to do was give up my home. Accept their version of events. Let them win. I called Robert. "It's a settlement offer," he said after I read him the letter. "And a clever one. They're trying to buy you off before this goes to court." "What should I do? What do you want to do?" I thought about that house on Maple Street, the kitchen where I'd taught Jessica to bake, the backyard where Tom had built her a swing set, the bedroom where he'd taken his last breath, my hand in his. "I want my home back," I said. "This isn't about money." Then we refuse the offer and proceed with the lawsuit. That afternoon, I wrote my own letter, brief and formal, declining their offer and returning the check. I mailed it before I could second-guess myself. The response was immediate. Jessica called from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "You're making a mistake." Her voice was ice cold. No tears now. $50,000, Mom. That's more than generous for someone living on a pension. It's not your money to offer, Jessica. It's my house. It was your house. You gave it to us. With conditions you violated. You know what? Fine. Drag this through court. Spend all your money on lawyers. You'll lose and you'll have nothing. Nothing but the satisfaction of destroying your relationship with your only child. You destroyed that relationship, I said quietly, the day you threw my belongings out of the garage like trash. She hung up. I sat in the silence of my apartment, trembling, but not from fear, from resolve. I needed support, real support, people who understood what I was going through. I found a community center that offered a support group for seniors dealing with family conflicts. Thursday evening, I walked into a church basement and found 12 other people sitting in a circle, grandmothers and grandfathers with stories painfully similar to mine. My son convinced me to add his name to my bank accounts, one woman said. Then he drained them and told me I'd given him the money. My daughter moved in to help after my wife died, an elderly man shared. 6 months later, she'd changed the locks and told me I was confused about whose house it was. Elder financial abuse. That's what the group leader called it. It happened more often than people realized. I shared my story, the conditional deed, the eviction, the missing heirlooms. An older woman named Patricia reached over and squeezed my hand. You're doing the right thing, honey. My son did the same thing to me. I fought back. It took 2 years, but I won. Got my house back, and he went to jail for fraud. Jail? I hadn't even considered criminal charges. If they stole your belongings, your mother's jewelry, the silver, that's theft. If they violated a legal contract knowingly, that's fraud. Document everything. I left that meeting with phone numbers, resources, and something I hadn't had in weeks. Hope. Patricia became my friend. She'd call me every few days, checking in. When I felt weak, when I missed Jessica so much I could barely breathe, Patricia would remind me, your daughter made choices. You're not punishing her. You're protecting yourself. Friday afternoon, Robert called with news. Marcus Stone called. They've withdrawn the settlement offer and are preparing to fight this aggressively. They're claiming you're mentally incompetent and being manipulated. They want a psychological evaluation. My blood boiled. Let them try. Margaret, I need to ask. Are you sure you want to continue? This is going to get much worse before it gets better. I thought about Patricia's words, about the support group, about the life I'd built in that house. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. Good, because I just filed a motion to expedite the case. We're going to court. They appeared at my door on a Sunday afternoon, 3 weeks after I'd filed the lawsuit. I'd just returned from lunch with Patricia when I saw them standing in the hallway outside my apartment, Jessica, Derek, and Carol Brennan. Jessica held a bouquet of white roses, my favorite. Derek carried a bakery box. Carol stood behind them like a sentry. Mom? Jessica's voice was soft, pleading. Please. Can we just talk? 5 minutes. That's all we're asking. Every instinct screamed not to open that door. But a small, foolish part of me, the mother who still remembered her baby's first steps, overrode my better judgment. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. We can talk here. Derek's jaw tightened, but Jessica stepped forward. Mom, we've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of soul-searching. Her eyes were red-rimmed, genuinely tear-stained. We were wrong. We were selfish and cruel, and we're so, so sorry. We want to make this right, Derek added, his voice carefully measured. We want you to come home. I blinked. Come home? Yes. Jessica's face lit up. We'll convert the den into a bedroom for you. You'll have your own space. We can be a family again. You can drop the lawsuit and we'll all move forward. Carol stepped forward. It's the Christian thing to do, Margaret. Forgiveness, family. Surely that's more important than legal battles and lawyer fees. I looked at the three of them standing in my hallway, and something felt wrong. The timing, the sudden change of heart, the way Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Why now?" I asked. "Because we love you," Jessica said quickly. Too quickly. "No. Why now? What changed?" Derek and Carol exchanged a glance. Just a flicker, but I caught it. "Robert spoke to your lawyer," I said slowly, realization dawning. "Marcus Stone told you something, didn't he? About the case." Derek's mask cracked. "We're trying to do something nice here, Margaret. You're being paranoid." "What did he tell you?" Jessica's composure wavered. "Mom, please." "What did he tell you?" "That we'll probably lose," Derek exploded. "That the conditional deed is airtight and we'll be forced to either let you return or give up the house entirely. Happy now?" The silence that followed was deafening. Carol stepped in, her voice syrupy. "Which is why we're here, Margaret. To offer a compromise before this goes to trial. You come home, we give you a room, everyone wins. You get to live in the house, and we maintain ownership. Isn't that what you want?" "A room," I repeated. "In my own house." "It's not your house anymore," Derek snapped, then seemed to catch himself. "I mean, legally, it's in our name. We're being generous here." I looked at my daughter. "Is this what you want, Jessica? For your mother to live like a tenant in the house she gave you?" Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "I want my mom back. I want things to be how they were." "They were never how you thought," I said quietly. "I was never truly welcome. You wanted my house, not me." "That's not true!" But her voice lacked conviction. I held up my hand. "Let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to go back to Maple Street, my house, and you're going to wait for the court date. And when we get in front of that judge, I'm going to present every text message, every documented theft, every violation of our agreement. And then that judge is going to decide." Derek's face turned red. "You stubborn, selfish old woman. We've offered you everything. A place to live, forgiveness, family. And you're throwing it away for what? Pride?" "For justice," I said. "There's a difference." Carol grabbed Derek's arm. "We should go. She's clearly not capable of rational thought." "Oh, I'm perfectly rational," I said, feeling a cold calm settle over me. "Rational enough to recognize manipulation when I see it. Rational enough to know that letting you bully me into dropping this lawsuit would be the biggest mistake of my life." Jessica's tears stopped. Something hard flashed in her eyes, something I'd never seen before. "Fine," she said, her voice flat. "Have it your way. But don't expect me to be there when you're dying alone in some nursing home. Don't expect me to visit or call or care." The words were meant to wound. And they did. But I stood my ground. "Then I guess I won't expect anything from you ever again," I replied. They left. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart hammering. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "How did it go?" I'd told her they were coming. "They tried to manipulate me into dropping the suit. I refused." "Good. That means you're winning. They're scared." I looked around my small apartment, cramped, modest, but mine. Earned through decades of work, filled with Tom's memory. Fear tried to creep in. What if Jessica meant those words? What if I really did end up alone? But then I thought about Derek's sneer, Carol's condescension, Jessica's cold eyes. I'd been alone for a long time. I just hadn't realized it. The fear transformed into something else. Determination. Let them be scared. The war wasn't over. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, less dramatic than what I'd seen on television. but the weight of what was about to happen made it feel immense. It was October 15th, 2025, 5 months after that text message had started everything. I sat next to Robert at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded on the polished wood. Across the aisle, Jessica and Derek sat with Marcus Stone, their expensive lawyer in his expensive suit. Jessica wouldn't look at me. Derek stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Judge Sarah Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. This is a hearing regarding property dispute case number 2025 CV08847, Martinez versus Hartley. Let's proceed. Marcus Stone stood first, smooth and confident. Your Honor, this is a simple case of a generous gift being retroactively reconsidered. Mrs. Martinez voluntarily transferred the property to her daughter and son-in-law in 2022. 3 years later, after a minor disagreement about garage space, she's attempting to weaponize an obscure conditional clause to punish them. Minor disagreement? Robert rose, his voice sharp. Your Honor, may I? Judge Morrison nodded. Robert laid out the timeline methodically. The conditional deed, the signed acknowledgement, the text messages demanding I vacate, the certified letter documenting my removal of belongings, the missing heirloom items. Mrs. Martinez didn't voluntarily leave, Your Honor. She was forced out in violation of a legally binding agreement that guaranteed her lifetime residence rights. Objection! Marcus jumped up. Mrs. Martinez was never forced out. She chose to rent an apartment. The defendants merely asked her to clear storage space. Judge Morrison looked at me. Mrs. Martinez, please approach the stand. My legs felt unsteady as I stood, but I walked forward with my head high. Under oath, I told my story. The text message. The way Derek had thrown my boxes into the car. The missing jewelry, the silver tea set, the photographs that had vanished. Did you at any point voluntarily agree to leave the residence? The judge asked. No, Your Honor. I was given no choice. Marcus Stone's cross-examination was brutal. Mrs. Martinez, isn't it true you've had memory issues? No. Isn't it true you forgot where you'd put important documents, leading to confusion about your rights? I knew exactly where my documents were, in the boxes your clients threw out of the garage. Isn't it true that you're elderly, lonely, and being manipulated by Mr. Chen for his legal fees? Robert objected. Judge Morrison sustained it, but I answered anyway. I'm 73, Mr. Stone, not incompetent. I know exactly what I'm doing. Then it was Jessica's turn on the stand. Marcus had prepped her well. She cried at all the right moments, talked about how much she loved me, how this was all a misunderstanding. Miss Hartley, Robert began his cross-examination, did you or did you not sign this document acknowledging your mother's lifetime residence rights? Jessica glanced at Marcus. Yes, but I didn't think. You didn't think what? That a legal document would be legally binding? I didn't think my mother would use it against us like this. Against you, or to protect herself? Objection! Marcus stood. Argumentative. Sustained. Mr. Chen, rephrase. Robert pulled out his phone, projected the text messages on the courtroom screen. Clear your stuff out of the garage. We need the space. Derek already has the car picked out. We have brunch plans, so... Miss Hartley, do these messages show any concern for your mother's well-being? Any invitation for her to stay? Jessica's composure cracked. We needed space. She was always there, always in the way. She stopped, realizing what she'd said. Derek's testimony was worse. He was arrogant, defensive. Mr. Hartley, Robert asked, what happened to Mrs. Martinez's mother's jewelry? The pieces she documented as being in the house? I don't know anything about jewelry. You don't know. You lived in that house for 3 years. There's a lot of stuff in that house. I can't keep track of everything. But you could keep track of garage space for a Tesla? Derek's face turned red. That's different. How is it different, Mr. Hartley? Because the garage is ours. The house is ours. We shouldn't have to live with an old woman hovering over us. Marcus put his head in his hands. Judge Morrison called for a recess. When we reconvened, her decision was swift and devastating for them. I've reviewed all evidence presented. The conditional deed is clear and legally binding. The defendants knowingly violated its terms. Mrs. Martinez is entitled to either immediate reinstatement of residence rights or full reversion of the property deed. Jessica gasped. Derek swore under his breath. Or, Mrs. Martinez, the judge looked at me. What is your preference? I'd thought about this for months, dreamed about it. I want my house back, Your Honor. Full reversion. So ordered. The deed transfer is void. The property reverts to Margaret Martinez effective immediately. The defendants have 30 days to vacate. The gavel fell. Jessica's sobs filled the courtroom. Derek was shouting at Marcus. Carol Brennan, sitting in the gallery, looked like she'd been slapped. I sat in perfect stillness, feeling nothing but cold, absolute certainty. I'd won. The 30 days felt like both an eternity and an instant. Jessica and Derek filed an appeal, of course. Marcus Stone tried every legal maneuver possible. But Robert had anticipated each one, and Judge Morrison's ruling was airtight. The appeal was denied within 2 weeks. I spent those weeks preparing. Patricia helped me hire a moving company. I contacted a locksmith. I documented the house's condition through the windows, taking photos of my old furniture, my belongings that had been absorbed into their life. Robert advised me to do a complete inventory. When you regain possession, we need to document everything that's missing or damaged. They might try to strip the house before leaving. He was right to be cautious. On day 22, I drove past the house and saw a moving truck in the driveway. They were taking things out, but not just their belongings. I called Robert immediately. They're removing items from the house, things that were there when I lived there. I'll file for an emergency restraining order. They're not allowed to remove any fixtures or items that were part of the original property. Within hours, a sheriff's deputy knocked on their door with a court order. Jessica's screams could be heard from the street. Neighbors came out to watch. The humiliation was public now. Everyone on Maple Street knew what they'd done. On day 28, Jessica called. Mom, her voice was hollow. Can we please talk? One last time? I almost said no, but curiosity won. We met at a coffee shop, neutral territory. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, hands trembling around her latte. She'd lost weight, her clothes hanging loose on her frame. I'm begging you, she said. Don't do this. We'll lose everything. We put money into that house, renovations, the new appliances. We'll be homeless. You have family, I said calmly. Derek's mother has that large house in Lake Oswego. Jessica's laugh was bitter. Carol won't take us in. She says we made our bed. She's humiliated that her son lost to an elderly woman. She told everyone at her country club. Derek's been blacklisted from his professional network. Nobody will hire him. Part of me registered that this should hurt. This was my child suffering, but I felt nothing except cold satisfaction. Then you'll find an apartment, like I did. We can't afford rent in Portland, not without the equity from the house. Derek lost his job last week. The stress of the lawsuit. I'm working retail at Target. We have nothing. We have less than nothing. We owe Marcus Stone $40,000 in legal fees. You should have thought about that before you violated our agreement. Jessica's face crumpled. You really hate me that much? I don't hate you, I said, and it was true. I just don't trust you, and I don't owe you anything anymore. I'm your daughter, and you threw your mother out like garbage. You reap what you sow, Jessica. I left her crying into her cold coffee. November 14th, 2025. Moving day. I arrived at 9 a.m. with the sheriff's deputies, the locksmith, and my moving company. The law was clear. They had to be out by noon. Derek's truck was still in the driveway, half loaded with boxes. Jessica sat on the front steps, eyes red and swollen. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, pretending to garden or walk dogs, but clearly watching. "Mrs. Martinez," the deputy said, "do you want to proceed?" "Yes." Derek emerged from the house, his face a mask of rage. "You're really doing this. You're really kicking your own daughter onto the street." "You kicked me out first," I replied. "I'm just reclaiming what was always mine. You'll regret this. When you're dying alone. When you need help. When—" "Sir," the deputy interrupted, "you need to finish loading and vacate the premises. Now." I watched them load their belongings, the modern furniture they'd bought, their clothes, their appliances. The movers I'd hired began bringing my stored items back inside. My couch, my mother's china cabinet, my photographs. Mrs. Chen from next door approached me. "Margaret, I'm so glad you're back. We all knew something wasn't right. The way they treated you." Other neighbors came over, offering support. Apparently, Jessica and Derek had been terrible neighbors too. Loud parties, rude responses to complaints, letting the yard go. "They didn't deserve this house," Mr. Patterson from across the street said. "Welcome home, Margaret." At 11:47 a.m., Derek carried out the last box. Jessica stood in the driveway, staring at the house. At me, mascara streaked down her face. "I'll never forgive you," she said. "I learned from the best," I replied. She flinched as if I'd struck her. The locksmith changed the locks at 12:15 p.m. The deputies left at 12:30. The movers finished by 3 o'clock. By 4 p.m., I was sitting in my living room, my living room, drinking tea from Tom's mother's silver service, which I'd found tucked in the back of a kitchen cabinet where they'd hidden it. I walked through each room slowly. The house smelled different. Paint, strangers, time. But it was still mine. The walls remembered me. The floors knew my footsteps. In the master bedroom, I found my mother's jewelry box shoved under a pile of Derek's old clothes in the closet. Every piece was there. They hadn't sold it. They'd just hidden it from me, probably planning to claim it after I died. I also found documents, printed emails between Jessica and Derek from 2 years ago, discussing how to transition Mom out once they'd established ownership. It had been planned, calculated, not a mistake or a moment of thoughtlessness, but a deliberate strategy. I photographed everything and sent it to Robert. "For the record," I wrote. I sat on the bed, my bed in my room, and called Robert. "I'm home," I said. "How does it feel?" "Like justice." That evening, Patricia came over with a bottle of wine and Chinese takeout. We sat in the kitchen where I'd taught Jessica to bake, where Tom and I had shared thousands of meals. "No regrets?" Patricia asked. I thought about that. About the daughter I'd lost, the grandchildren I'd never have, the family gatherings that would never happen. "I lost my daughter years ago," I finally said. "I just didn't realize it until she threw me out. I'm not getting back something I lost. I'm reclaiming something that was stolen." Patricia raised her glass. "To justice." "To justice," I echoed. 2 weeks later, I learned through mutual friends that Jessica and Derek had moved to Idaho, where the cost of living was cheaper. They were renting a 2-bedroom apartment, both working minimum wage jobs. Derek's mother had indeed refused to help them. She'd told mutual friends that she was ashamed of her son. Their social media accounts had gone dark. Friends who'd sided with them during the lawsuit had quietly distanced themselves once the truth came out, especially after the local news ran a story about elder financial abuse, featuring my case. They'd lost everything: the house, their reputation, their comfortable life, their social standing, their financial security, and I'd won it all back. Some might say I was cruel, vindictive, an old woman who chose property over family. But those people didn't understand. It was never about the house. It was about dignity, respect, the fundamental principle that you don't throw away the people who gave you everything. I'd taught Jessica a lesson, a harsh one perhaps, but a necessary one. 6 months later, my life had transformed in ways I never expected. Spring came to Portland with cherry blossoms and gentle rain. I'd repainted the house room by room, not the harsh colors Jessica had chosen, but soft, warm tones that felt like home. The family photos were back on the walls. Tom smiled at me from every room. But the biggest change was that I was no longer alone. Patricia had introduced me to a widowers and widows social group at the community center. Every Thursday, we'd meet for dinner and conversation. There was Harold, a retired teacher whose son had stolen his retirement fund. Marie, whose daughter had convinced her to sign over her house and then put her in a nursing home. David, whose children had fought over his belongings before he was even sick. We were a family of survivors. On Saturdays, I volunteered at the legal aid clinic, helping other seniors navigate elder abuse cases. I'd become something of a local expert, the woman who'd fought back and won. Lawyers referred clients to me for moral support. I'd sit with trembling grandmothers and grandfathers, holding their hands, telling them, "You are not alone. You can fight this." I'd helped 7 people reclaim their homes or assets, 7 families where the abusers had been stopped. My house became a gathering place. Patricia and I hosted dinner parties. Harold taught me to play bridge. Marie brought her famous lemon cake every Sunday. The den that Jessica had wanted to convert into my room became my art studio. I'd started painting again, something I hadn't done since Tom died. Watercolors of the cherry blossoms, the garden, memories of happier times. I was improbably happy. My phone buzzed one morning in April, an unknown Idaho number. I let it go to voicemail. "Mom, it's me." Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. "I know I have no right to call, but I wanted you to know Derek left me. He blamed me for everything, losing the house, losing his job. He found someone else, someone younger. I'm alone now, working 2 jobs just to afford my apartment. I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong." I saved the message but didn't return the call. Harold, who'd become a close friend, asked me about it over coffee. "Do you think she means it?" he asked. "The apology? Does it matter?" I replied. "Sorry doesn't give me back the 3 years of abuse. Sorry doesn't erase what she said in that courtroom. What will you do?" Nothing. She made her choices. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned more. Jessica had been evicted from her first Idaho apartment for non-payment of rent. She was living in a studio now, barely making ends meet. Derek had indeed left her for a 26-year-old bartender and refused to pay any support. Carol Brennan had disowned them both, embarrassed by the scandal. Jessica was completely alone. Some nights I'd think about that, about my daughter struggling while I lived comfortably in the home I'd reclaimed. The mother in me would feel a pang of sympathy. But then I'd remember. The eye roll, just old papers. The cold voice on the phone. We need the space. The courtroom testimony. She was always in the way. And the sympathy would fade. Marie understood. She'd reconciled with her daughter eventually, but only after her daughter had spent 2 years in prison for fraud and emerged genuinely remorseful. "Some people need to lose everything before they understand what they had," Marie told me. Some never understand at all. By summer, I'd completely transformed the house. New garden beds where I grew tomatoes and herbs, a reading nook in the sunroom, fresh paint on the porch. I hired a lawyer to update my will. Everything would go to a foundation supporting elder abuse victims. Jessica's name appeared nowhere in the document. Harold asked if that was too harsh. She had her inheritance, I said. I gave it to her freely, with one simple condition. She destroyed it through greed. I won't give her the chance to do it again. In July, Jessica sent a letter. Not through a lawyer this time, handwritten, 5 pages long. She was sorry. She was broken. She'd been influenced by Derek. She saw now how wrong she'd been. Could we talk? Could I forgive her? Could she come home? I read it twice, then filed it away in a folder labeled History. I didn't respond. Patricia asked if I'd ever consider reconciliation. If she'd called the day after the trial, maybe, I said. But she only reached out after Derek left. After she lost everything, she doesn't miss me. She misses what I could give her. How do you know? Because if she truly understood what she'd done, she wouldn't be asking to come home. She'd be accepting the consequences of her actions. I looked around my living room, filled with friends, laughter, life. This is my home, I said. I fought for it. I won it back. And I'll never let anyone take it from me again. My new family, Patricia, Harold, Marie, David, and a dozen others, raised their glasses. To justice, to dignity, to second chances. But not third ones. Never third ones. Looking back now, people ask if I have regrets. I don't. I learned that love without respect is worthless. That family doesn't mean tolerating abuse. That standing up for yourself isn't cruelty. It's survival. My daughter chose greed over gratitude. She chose a house over her mother. And when the consequences came, she called them unfair. But life isn't about fairness. It's about choices and consequences. I chose dignity. I chose justice. And I'd make the same choice again. What would you have done? Would you have forgiven? Would you have fought back? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, or if you know someone facing similar struggles, please share it. Subscribe for more real-life stories about courage, justice, and standing up for yourself. Remember, you are never too old to fight for what's yours. Thank you for listening to my story.